Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, coming to you with another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. And that is from my world headquarters in Wilmington, North Carolina. I have today such a special guest, and her name is Cheryl Greenfield. I still want to call you Kathy after all this time, but Cheryl Greenfield, and she is such a special person in so many ways. And we're just going to have a conversation today about Cheryl's life experience and why she wrote her book, Silent Gaze. And we're just going to dive into it and just have fun, but some serious discussion as well. So welcome, Cheryl. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. I'm happy to be here.
I'm
I'm excited.
thrilled. So let's start by I want you to tell people instead of me reading a bio, I want you to just tell viewers who you are, a little bit about your life story, and, we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Cheryl Greenfield. I actually live in Trenton, Ohio, and born and raised here and still here. And I was a nurse of 40 years, and I retired a couple years ago, and I'm an empowerment mindset coach. That came about because of my trauma. More on that. And then I also have an entrepreneurial business with travel where I say I work from the beaches of the world. So it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that is, and she's leaving a whole lot out for time's
Mhm.
sake because there's a whole lot more there. So let's kind of start and talk about the the reason for writing this book. But before that, what trauma have you had in your life that really was the impetus for healing? We're going to talk about that, some ways that you found healing, and just, we're going to get into the nitty gritty. So go
Sure.
ahead and share as much as you're comfortable with.
Okay. All right. So when I was a child, it started with my first babysitting episode, actually, with my aunt and uncle, and it was at the hands of my uncle. And that started a 6 year saga of him abusing me, manipulating me, threatening me into silence. And he threatened to kill me, kill my family. And, I was young and impressionable. When this started, I was 12. And so I had no idea what the world was like. And he changed as the years went on. It started as, well, this is the second part of babysitting. You get the man ready for the woman. And then it turned into, no, you will do this. And then it turned into, if you don't do this, I'm going to hurt you and others. And then it turned into, well, you're getting older. You need to learn how to take care of a man. So he tried a lot of different tactics throughout my childhood. And so that happened from the years 12 to 18.
Wow. Now, were you, since it started a little bit later, at 12 as opposed to a young, 3, 4 years old, did you know from the very, very beginning that it was wrong? Or did you accept it because he was a family member and he wouldn't steer me wrong?
It was more confusion, but my mother had always said, you do what the adults say.
Yeah.
And she set the babysitting situation up like that, you do what they say. And so I'm like, well, maybe this is supposed to be it. And so I didn't say anything in the beginning, but then I couldn't say anything later because that's when the threats started. When I figured out this wasn't normal, this wasn't the way things should go, and I challenged that, then that's when it's shifted and became threatening.
Okay. Now, what point did you come to where you said, enough, I am going to tell? Or did you tell at some point and brought
I
it out
I
to the
did
light?
I did try to tell my aunt at one point, but he snuffed that out pretty quickly and was saying, he said, always be one step ahead of you. Remember that. And so I never told again until I was an adult. And that was 45 years of holding a secret.
Wow. Now, how did you, as you tried to deal with that abuse and the trauma, how did you self soothe? How did you manage it within yourself? What were your coping mechanisms?
They were very poor, to be honest, because I went to college and I thought this will be good. I'll get away from it. But I couldn't get away from this, what was going on up here, because there had been a lot of subconscious damage there and the unworthy. And I got into doing drugs and alcohol. And even though I did that, I managed to stay alive through it. And I managed to graduate and become a nurse, right? And but I made some very poor decisions on how to take care of myself. And it wasn't a good thing. Then as time went on, I made myself busy. Again, this is not a good choice, right? And I got into the busy of life because I found I could keep it at bay
Okay.
better. Yeah. And again, though, that's not taking care of me. I was taking care of everyone else and everything else and totally ignoring what was going on within me.
Yeah, yeah. And eventually I think that completely caves in on you and you come to the end of yourself. And
Mhm.
so kind of describe that, if it was a moment, if it was over a period of time, like what brought you to the end of yourself and the unhealthy coping mechanisms to where you like, ooh, I think I need some healing here.
Mhm. Well, it was when the story came out, is when that finally happened, which was in 2018. And it came out because he was abusing his granddaughter at that time. And um and I was devastated by that. And I knew I had to stand up in support of her because I knew what he was capable of. And so I stood right up, filed a police report, and I was proud of myself for doing that. It took a lot of courage, but I was really proud of myself.
Yes.
But I wasn't prepared for what happened after that. Because what happened after that is I got re-victimized by
Okay.
my fiance, by family, by friends. I must have liked it. They said some terrible, awful things to me. And I should have felt guilty. I could have stopped this from happening to everyone else. And I actually dove into a very deep depression. So deep, I seriously considered killing myself, to the point I made a plan even. And so I was pretty serious about it. And I I knew though I had a new grandbaby, and I knew I couldn't let that be my legacy for her, right? And I knew I needed to find help. Now, over the years, I had tried some counseling services off and on. It just didn't work for me. And so I started looking and I found a coach.
Okay.
And I kind of giggled at her program when I saw the ad, because it says you're one thought away from changing your life. And I was like, yeah, right. I've had a terrible life. How could that even work?
Yeah. One
And so
thought.
I called
Yeah.
her. Just one thought, right? It's going to change everything. And I had no idea the power of that. And so I called her. And it intrigued me enough to try the program. I thought, well, I've got to try something here because I don't want to go through with what my plan was.
Yeah.
And so I just took one step and then the next step and the next step. And then here we are, a little over 4 years later. This is what has happened now.
Wow. And that's so recent. It's not like
Mhm,
you have gone through it. Okay, I've been, there coaching 20 years. I mean, this is really
mhm.
2018 and beyond. That's really
Yes,
recent. So,
yes.
what happened with the coach, that one thought? What happened that changed everything? Was there a mind explosion, like an aha moment that was so big that
Mhm.
it's, yeah, to kind of describe
Well,
that
kind
for
of,
us.
kind of. The thing that I didn't understand was for 45 years, I carried that story, right? I carried that story here, and I told myself that story over and over and over again. How I wasn't worthy, how I was no good, how, all these bad things I would say about myself. And I say this now to a lot of people when I coach them. You're the biggest bully in the room to yourself. most of the time,
Yeah,
right? We say very bad things to ourselves that we would never, ever say to somebody else. But we
absolutely.
do it up here in silence. We're talking to ourselves. And so when I learned that was the key to changing it and not living in the victimhood, not even being a survivor of it, but I could learn to become a thriver. And I could actually use my trauma and empower myself through it. It was
Yes.
all about rewriting the story, and the story was I managed to stay alive, right? I
Yeah.
managed to stay alive through it. I managed to live through it, even though it created a lot of emotional impact and physical impact on my body. So I had to learn to be proud of myself for that and make that the story. The story wasn't what he told me, the story was what I was capable of doing.
Yes.
And then through my life, despite I carried all of this trauma, I did have a good career. I did have a lovely child. I had good things in my life. But when you're carrying all of this, it's very difficult to see that.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And kind of describe some of you describe the shame and all that. Are there other emotions involved in carrying that trauma and maybe even the secret, but maybe the secret's out? And what are some of the emotions surrounding that are so impactful and keep people from living a full life?
Well, it's true. I mean, there are a lot of emotions and it runs the gamut. It's shame, of course, guilt, should I feel guilty? I never felt guilty until somebody put that in my mind, by the way.
Oh,
And that had never even came into my mind because I never felt guilty that he did it to me. But
yeah.
outside people gave me the influence I should feel guilty. And then I had to struggle through that because then it was planted and I was like, should I feel guilty? But it's depression. It's like, why me? Why did I have to go through this? And it's just a lot of very depressive victimhood sort of emotional impact. And
Yeah.
there's many people who are living with this, but they don't have to. That's the key. And that's what I
Yes.
learned. You don't have to live with it. You don't have to live with these emotions. And
Yes.
most people isolate themselves. There's a lot of isolation. I certainly did that. Mostly because I knew then if I isolated myself, I wouldn't have to talk to people because that was a scary thing for me because I was afraid I wouldn't keep the secret. So there's a lot of isolation in there, and with isolation comes more depression. And so mostly those emotions.
Okay. Yeah. And that all those emotions make sense. So have you found on the other side of that, since you have been doing the work, you did the work, you are doing the work, and you're continue to do the work because you know
Yes.
that that's how you have to care for yourself and need to care for yourself. But what does life look like on this side?
Well, it's fantastic to be honest. And now it's not been all roses, and I want people to understand that. I had a process and it was several years of processing this and working through the steps and unraveling things that I had as, the way I function. And I had to learn what are my triggers and how are my habits changed because of what's happened to me. So it takes some time to unravel that. And interestingly enough, writing the book was one of the most enlightening things for me because I was carrying all these stories around afraid I was going to lose them. If that now that might sound strange, but I didn't want to lose them because it happened to me. And that's everything I was telling myself. But
Yeah.
unraveling them, I was afraid I would lose them. And so I still felt like I was kind of carrying those stories. But actually, after I got it all down on paper, it was like a big weight was lifted off.
Yeah, writing is like that, very, very cathartic,
Yes,
writing your story in a book that, and you
yes.
were full aware it's not a book just for a couple people. This is a book you have put out on Amazon and that is available to the world. So did you feel some fear, some trepidation in the process of that, because it just, okay, people know about the story and beyond. I know you're a speaker and all that, but now it's on a world stage. What did you feel about that, or what did you go through?
I had some fears about that, right? Would this be accepted, and would this be a point of re-victimization again? This time I would be prepared for that though, right? Because
Yes.
everybody can react in their own way, and they may feel very passionate about how they feel about a situation like this.
Mm-hmm.
But um, I actually feel happy that it's out there. And this is why. Not because it's my story, it's because how I wrote the book, which is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm really excited about.
Yes.
Because I wrote the story, but behind the story in every chapter is about what's happening in your subconscious mind, what's happening in your physical body and your emotional mind when this is happening to you. And if this is happening, here's some things that you can do to help yourself through it. So
Yeah.
it's an explanation of trauma, if
Mm.
you will, and how it affects you. And then it's an explanation of mindset work and how you can use one thought away type programming to change your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found it to be the most practical book I have ever come across in the
Thank you.
trauma healing world, because you not only share bits of your story, but what I loved is that right at the beginning, I mean, you start with, a little bit of your story, but you go right into offering help and just
Mhm.
listing trauma phone numbers. And I mean, usually people wait till the back of the book and they list everything and all the resources. You just, bam, you
Mhm.
really hit it hard with just here's some help right now. And it's
Mhm.
so practical. And yet your stories, I mean, it's such a beautiful blend. I mean,
Thank
that's what
you.
I think.
Thank you. Well, that was my idea. I didn't want to put out just a terrible story. It needed to be something that was helpful to people.
Yes.
And what was helpful to me was the work that I did. It totally changed my life. I am not the person I was prior to this work. And the people who knew me best know my change,
Mhm.
right? And
Yes.
they see it and now they understand. They didn't understand before. But the idea of the book was if it just helps one person, it was worth it all.
Yes.
But I'm proud of the book in the fact that it is out there now and it can help people. And I'm getting really good reviews from it. People have been contacting me already. People who had no idea I was writing the book and then they saw it was
Yeah.
published and so they got it and they've been reading it and reaching out to me, some nurses I used to work with in the past and people from childhood and things like that. It's been a fun experience in that regard. And every one of them said, you were great at keeping a secret. We were close, I thought, and we knew nothing about this. Well,
Hmm.
that's because I had to keep them safe because
Yeah.
he could have killed them, right? And he
Yes.
threatened. So, and so yeah, I'm really proud of it. This side of it feels really good now.
Yes. Once
Yes,
you
it does.
sit in the mud and you have to kind of walk and wade in the mud
Mhm.
through getting it all together. But
Yes.
then on this side, hearing the comments from people and hearing from, maybe there's one woman out there that has kept silent all these years, and
Mhm.
your book has made her safe enough to tell somebody. And I know if you haven't already, you're going to get an email from that. I mean, and it's not just going to be one woman, it's going to be many, many women. But that one woman who reads it and says, oh, if there's hope for her, she went through all this, then there maybe, maybe there's hope for me too. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you when you get that email,
Yes.
because like you said, it would be all worth it.
It would be. I will cherish that when that comes because that's the one thing I wanted. I have done some keynote speeches for A21 walks for freedom
Okay.
from human trafficking.
Yes.
And the very first one I did, when it was over, I stood in the same spot for 2 hours with one person after another coming up to meet me. And they all said, I've never told anyone either. I've never told anyone either. I still have that secret myself. And I knew right then this was bigger. so much bigger than I had any idea.
Yeah.
And the statistics for sexual trauma can't be accurate. I mean, that was 2 hours of one person after another coming up to me, hundreds, saying, I have a secret too. I have a secret too. So I'm really hoping this book helps many of those people and reach out. And yes, I did put resources at the front for a couple reasons. One, people
Yes.
need to know what's out there to help them because there's
Yes.
plenty of help. And that's something that I didn't really find. And I worked in the medical field and I couldn't figure
Yeah.
that out for myself. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that
And
is. Why do
yeah,
you think that that there's resources and people can't find or don't know where to find those resources?
well,
Why?
I think some of it is insurance related and
Okay.
because mental health is very hard to get covered,
Yeah, true.
right?
Yeah.
And now back in the day, we didn't have the lifelines that we do now, like being able to text 211 for help or, whatever the case may be. We've got a lot more with cell phones. You can text for help. There's crisis lines that you can text. And so it's more of an immediate sort of thing, which we didn't have that way back when. You'd have to, check with your insurance and try to get approval for a couple visits and
Yeah.
so it was much more difficult back then. Plus, when people read things of trauma, if they've been traumatized, it might trigger them. And I wanted them to be certain to know you could be triggered in this book. And
Yeah.
because it is my story, and while I was not super graphic in a lot of the really bad things that happened, I gave enough though that could trigger people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think somebody that hasn't told or maybe has told but hasn't dealt with it
Mhm.
fully that they could read that and it's going to be triggering, it's going to be painful because they're going to have to, as you did while you were writing the book, I'm sure, have to their flashbacks of what happened to them. And
Yes,
I know you say in your book it's mainly geared for women, but men experience this too, you
absolutely.
know, more
Absolutely.
often than we would like to think.
Right. And men can do the same work. And, they can do the same work on the subconscious mind. Whenever you have trauma, trauma is trauma, whether it's sexual trauma, if it's child abuse of some sort, if you were in a car accident, if you were held at gunpoint, whatever the trauma is, believe it or not, it lands in the body the same way. Your body and your emotional mind react similarly to whatever it is.
Yes.
So the concepts still apply for
Yeah,
everyone.
absolutely. And I'm currently reading the book, The Body Keeps a Score. And
Great
it
one.
so and I'm just, I'm in the first third, maybe even the first quarter, and I am just captivated because
Mhm.
absolutely what you said, no matter what the trauma, it
Mhm.
lands in your body and you have to work on getting it out or it festers
It does.
like an internal sore or something,
Mhm.
and
Well, it does. Well, in my case, it actually caused cancer cells. I know that without a doubt that, when I was 22, I had a total and complete hysterectomy. And because I had holes in the uterus, but there were cancer cells, so they took it all. Now I got life, but at the time I didn't understand it. See, now I can look back in the past and see how the path went with my physical health and my mental health. Prior to this coming out, I was sick all the time, sick all the
okay.
time. Now I'm not sick at all, right? So I'm
Yeah.
very healthy. I look younger now than I did 10 years ago. And it's because I've done the work to
Yes.
get this out of my body.
Yes. Yeah. I'm so glad and I'm really hoping I'm going to spread this all over my social media
Oh,
channels,
I
but
appreciate that.
I just hope people share this to their networks because I think most of us know somebody that has been traumatized, especially sexually traumatized, but traumatized and just needs to get that out of their body. And like you said, there's always triggers. There's, I'm wondering too if certain smells, certain things
Mhm.
are triggers for you.
Oh,
If you
yes.
smell a certain, I don't know, what is
Mhm.
it? cologne maybe
Cologne.
that he wore or something.
Hmm.
It,
Hmm.
is that
Yeah, alcohol breath bothers me
alcohol
too.
breath?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you get close to like my ear, like with a hot alcohol breath, that that triggers me.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Okay. And can you share, and I'm going to be sensitive here, can you share, did you ever face your, I'll say captor, cap, the person, your uncle?
Hmm.
Did you ever face him again and look him in the eye?
Hmm.
And
In
what was
court.
that like? Can you share that?
Yeah, it was in court actually.
Okay.
And when this went to court, we actually had 22 women who showed up at court that he had abused in the past. And the numbers are much larger than that. But 22 actually filed police reports and showed up in support of his granddaughter who reported it. Because of statute of limitations in Ohio, ours were all out. We couldn't charge him with ours, but we could show support. And the judge had us write victim impact statements. And
Okay.
he was trying to say he was not guilty until 22 women walked in court that day. Then they called a recess, and then he wanted a plea deal, which Katie went with a plea deal, which is okay. It was her decision because it kept everybody off the stand, especially her little sister.
Okay.
So I agreed with that. But yes, I saw him in court, and then the judge made him sit there for 3 hours while we all read our victim impact statements. And none of us had read each other's. We weren't permitted to talk
Okay.
or read the statements prior to this. But he sat like stone faced, cold as ice, staring straight ahead, like he wouldn't engage. He did say when he came in the courtroom once, he walked by us and said, "I'll kill y'all."
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay,
yeah.
so
So,
that brings up a question. Do you think with somebody who does that to one or 22 or 50, is there mental illness involved? Because it sounds like he had mental illness, but that I don't want to use that as an excuse, like, oh, he acted that way because of this. But do you think that's often involved with somebody who
oh,
does that?
absolutely. I think it's generational too. There was some talk that maybe he had been abused or seen abuse, and so he was just carrying that path on forward. So that could be part of it, the generational abuse cycle. Um, but also he was a narcissist, plain and
Okay.
simple. It was all about him, right? And that's kind of what you get. And those type of people are very manipulative
Yes.
to get exactly what it is they want. And
Yes.
I truly feel that that is part of his mental illness, is that he's a narcissist and he just went after what he wanted. It didn't matter who was hurt or, who was in the path,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, and that's it's a personality disorder that's not
Hmm.
curable, that you can't take
Hmm.
any medication for. Most are completely unaware.
Hmm.
All you can do is be diagnosed as
Right,
a narcissist, but
right.
most of the time, for them it's everybody else's fault and problem,
Yes.
and they're just, I'm great, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, could it be God help? Maybe. I don't know. He would have to be willing to work on himself,
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Did he
but he
go
didn't for a
to prison?
lifetime.
Did he
He
go?
did. He
Okay.
did for 5 years. He's out
Okay.
now.
Okay.
He,
How does that make you feel?
um, I hold a vision that he's gonna just leave us all alone. And
Okay.
I just hold that vision because I truly believe what you think about, you bring about.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that in life. So I try not to think about all the bad things he could possibly do to people and me and my family. So I just hold the vision that,
Okay.
this happened and I have a right to tell my side of the story and help other people who have
Yeah.
had similar instances and have not had help with this. So
Beautiful.
I don't want to sit
Yeah.
with it.
So, yeah, I love that. And during the course of your book, what did you learn about yourself that kind of surprised you?
Um, Well, a couple things. It was easier to write than I thought, right? And it's sort of just once I got started, it just started flowing out of me. And
Yes.
that surprised me because I really thought it was going to be very difficult to write.
You made
And
it look easy.
well, thank you. I mean, I would say it was easy, but it wasn't so difficult. I had moments where I broke down. I had moments, especially the stuff about around my mother and things. And still I can't read that part of the book without crying. I had moments
Yeah.
where I cried and thought, can
Yeah.
I finish this? And things like that. But those were clearing moments, right? I was just clearing the emotions out, and it just had to come out of me that way. And that's why I felt better when I finally got it all written down.
Yes.
But so I was kind of proud of the writing that came out of it. It surprised me, to be honest. And it showed me how strong I can be. Like I set a goal to get this done and I got it done.
Yeah, it was I think, the easiest book that I've ever coordinated the project. It was just the process was very, very, it flowed well. It was easy. It was just, there was no big hiccups or anything, a couple back and forths, but that's normal. So I would love a million clients like you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It just came out of me. I don't know. It wasn't like I've ever written a book before.
Yeah, I know. You
I did a
have.
journal, and that was my journal prompts I used
Hmm.
to help myself. And people kept asking me, "Well, what did you ask yourself?" So I put a journal together. So I've done that, but I don't
Yeah.
really have any like book writing certificates or or education in that. I just sat down and said, "Okay, here it is. Let it come out." And that's how it came out.
And that's what happened. Yes. And you wrote from your heart because it's
Hmm.
very um transparent. It's
Hmm.
very, you can see your vulnerability, but you can see your transparency. You did not try to hide anything. You
Hmm.
just told your story from your perspective, which is all
Hmm.
you have,
Right?
is from your
Hmm.
perspective. And I'm just, thrilled with the results. So, with all of that said, what are you doing now? You mentioned speaking, you mentioned coaching. What are you doing these days that is just creating even more of an impact?
Well, coaching is one. So I do have a coaching platform. It's called Wave, and it's
Yeah.
very similar to the One Thought Away program to help you learn how to handle your mind and start changing the paradigms that we are carrying
Yes.
with us. It will change your life if you participate. It just does. And then, of course, I do speaking engagements. I have one next month. I'm doing a wellness retreat where I'm talking to
Mhm.
women about energy. So I do that as well. And I'll be taking on more speaking engagements. I did have a TV show that was with Win Win Women, but it's gone off the air now. So I'm actually moving my TV show over to YouTube. It's called Envision You. And so watch for that because I'm about ready to launch that. Probably about the 1st of June, it's
Yeah.
officially going to launch. And I'm putting all the pieces in the background and I'm putting all the old episodes over there so people could go back and watch because I talk about these principles and if you have trauma, how to work with that. So that's one episode after another. There's almost 2 years of episodes there that people could get in and watch. So that's coming to my YouTube channel. And beyond that, I'm available to help anyone, truly. If you want some guidance, I do complimentary calls with people. It's a 1 hour complimentary call,
Wow.
and they can ask me the questions. I can set up a plan for them to help them work through it. They can work with me or not work with me. I can guide them whichever way they want to go. But the important thing is people need to get the help.
Yeah, 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 because I think just so many stay stuck in their pain and their trauma, and they just they don't move forward, or actually they don't, not only not move forward, they move backwards many
Yes,
times, and they
yes.
just continue with self-destructive behavior and that
Mhm.
victim mentality and the whole
Yes,
thing. And so yeah,
yes. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Okay. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to contact you, if they want, and we'll put all this in the show notes. We'll put all the links, everything, but how can
Yeah.
people contact you?
Well, they can contact me on my Calendly link. So I have a Calendly link. So
Good.
we'll put that in the thing.
Yep.
And then my email, which is Cheryl Greenfield, just my name, 1961 at gmail.com. That's the easiest way to reach me. And
Okay.
I will answer the messages. I answer every message. So if you email me a message, you will certainly get an answer from me. And that's the easiest way. Otherwise, you can follow me. I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. My Instagram page is Sip, Soar, and Shine. And then my Facebook is my name, Cheryl Greenfield.
Wonderful, wonderful. Any parting words? And before I ask any parting words, I do want to ask this, and it's kind of, maybe I should have asked it earlier, but speak to the woman out there who has not healed, who has
Okay.
been a victim, and I'll just freely say a victim of sexual abuse, of molestation, of any of that. Speak to her
Okay.
and give her a spark of hope.
Okay. So if you are that person, I want you to know from the depths of my soul, I know you can get help. Help is here and you can change your life. I stood on the cliff of suicide and came back from it. And my life is so much different today than it was before I did this work. I can't even begin to tell you how different it is. And it just takes that first step. Just reach out. That's the first step. You're not broken. Many people think they're broken when they've had this. You are not broken. What has happened is you have habits that have been ingrained inside your subconscious mind, and you just don't know how to switch those. Once you know that, your life will change. So there's plenty of hope out here. I'm living proof of it. I held this secret for 45 years, not telling one soul, not one. So there is hope. And I look forward to hearing from you. You've got my email, you've got Calendly links. You can reach out to me without any obligation, just to tell me if that's the first step that you need to take. Reach out.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm breathing heavy so I don't cry.
Me too.
And so
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
so beautiful. So do you have, besides that, I just pray, just please share this episode, like and share it so it gets into as many hands and eyes and ears as possible. But Cheryl, do you have any parting words about anything that you would like to leave us with?
Yes, we are all unique and special, and we are all worthy. We are all here for a purpose in this life. If you've not found your purpose, now's the time. And I know I went through terrible trauma, but I found my purpose is to help others. So please reach out. Please share this. If you're not one who's had trauma, share this with somebody who has. But again, we're all unique and special, and we're here for a reason.
Ooh. Beautiful, beautiful. What a way to end. And I will just say thank you so much for being a guest. This was a really special episode, and I really
Thank you.
appreciate you and all that you stand for. And I just say thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. You made the system so easy for me. You took care of everything, and I really appreciate that. And we got the book out, and I can't wait to see what all it does.
I know. And that is my calling. I love what I do. And you were such a joy to work with on every level. So I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. And until next time, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.